Today's program description, vendor returns processing, put Amazon back in their corner, is as follows. Are you a manufacturer or distributor who sells large quantities of items via Amazon? You may not realize your team is spending unbelievable amounts of time processing Amazon returns due to the Amazon requirement to provide return reconciliations by each return, one by tedious one. This frustrating and boring task is likely causing some serious employee dissatisfaction, in addition to wasting your department's time on route paperwork. In 20 minutes, learn why adding people and process will literally never get you ahead of Amazon and how you can beat them at their own game. Presenting today's program is Rohit Patel, Credit and Collections Consultant at iNymbus. Rohit Patel has extensive experience in the credit and collections arena, with long tenures leading the credit and collection teams at Sony Computer Entertainment America, Warner Brothers, Home Entertainment, and ResMed. At these companies, Rohit's expertise includes the development of strategic plans that led to improved financial operating results and successful global ERP implementations, as well as other process and system enhancements that led to increased efficiencies. Rohit believes that technology will play a critical role in the future of credit and collections and is always looking for cutting-edge technology that disturbs the norm. Rohit has a degree from England and enjoys traveling and spending time with his family. So without further ado, I'm pleased to turn the program over to Rohit.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody joining today. We're just going to go through real quickly. Okay, the agenda's in a second. Why listen to us, right? So I've been working with technology for over 6+ years, but specifically robotics technology, and we'll talk about that later on today. But one of the things that is key is looking and focusing on one process and getting the right technology to eliminate that. And today we're going to talk about returns, chargebacks, and deductions, and how technology can help credit and collection departments, as well as the recon teams as well. We feel your pain, and we want to help you get out of this mess. So the agenda for today, basically, we're going to go through new/old AR problems with returns. Most of you hopefully understand that. Potential solutions that are out there in the market, and the top benefits of robots in the returns automation, and what would be next. So old/new AR return problem. So returns have been a problem for a long time, ever since the first suppliers sent to retailers and products were going back and forth. So it's an old problem, but it has a new twist, which I'll talk about in a little while. So returns are complicated for sure, right? So customers request returns for multiple reasons. They don't want them, they're defective. Sometimes I question whether they're defective or not. Often the retailers will purchase too much product, so it's set on their shelves. A lot of you people call that restocking, and so they want to return that product. Damage in transit, that could be your fault, or it could be the shipper's fault, or the fault of the receiver. And also damaged boxes, once they're open, there's nothing wrong with them, they don't want them, and they send them back. Then you also have the complication of wrong product. Often you may receive your competitor's product as well. So the whole reverse supply chain is very, very complicated and creates a lot of nuances, especially in the deductions area. Talking about the complication, right? So here's just one example. Say you've ordered something from Amazon and you want to return it. So you go onto the Amazon portal personally, and then you request for that product to be returned. I've seen sometimes where Amazon will give me a credit immediately, and they may not even want that product back. Now, knowing that Amazon is going to credit me as an individual, they're going to go back to the retailer who provides that product to them and take that deduction immediately from the supplier. even before that return has come back. They will often allow 45 days for that product to be shipped back. If the item doesn't get returned back, Amazon should, in parentheses, automatically reimburse the supplier. However, that doesn't always happen. A wise supplier should always keep a track and validate all of the debits and credits to make sure that the products that they are deducting for are actually coming back to you, as well as being credited. The old way to solve a problem for returns is a long process. This process I'm going to describe could take several weeks to maybe a month. So often, because returns are coming back constantly from suppliers, companies will wait a quarter or two to consolidate all of the data, because they often are returns in transit. They will go ahead and do a reconciliation. We're calling it recon here, against the AR credits. So you're going to have the retailer's debits, you're going to have your credits, what your warehouse has processed, and that's another topic of discussion at another time, is how accurate your warehouse is. Once they have the debits and credits, they will go ahead and create a returns variance analysis. That analysis can be huge, because if you're waiting for a quarter or two of data, it's going to be quite complex to go through that. And at the end of that process, you're going to go ahead and provide that to the retailer, and the negotiations begin, right? So you go back and forth on negotiations because of pricing variances, shortage, overage. They may actually return more to you as well. There's freight in there, there's handling fees in there. So there's a myriad of different variables that creates the complexity for returns. So that's the old way that the retailers used to settle with us. Now, what they've actually done is gone one step further, and this is coming from the retailer. So basically, everybody who's supplying to them, please go ahead and dispute each return. They don't want to do settlements anymore. They want you to do return by return. Not only do they want you to do the return reconciliation, but they also want you to dispute and upload at a line by line level, right? So now you're actually doing their work for them. Again, using their portal means that they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to negotiate anymore. They don't want to settle. They want you to go ahead and just use their portal, do their work for them. And the longer it takes you, the longer they are holding on to your cash flow. And I know they say thank you very much for the cash flow that they're receiving at that time. Here's just a screenshot of Vendor Central. You can see the complexity of those returns, different date ranges that they come through. And again, it's at that line level, coming through multiple packages and so forth. So there's a range of a 7-day, and then you're going to have to go ahead and do all the work for them. What makes it even worse, right? So I mentioned pricing earlier on. Amazon may be returning product at the wrong price. Whenever your company has a special, maybe it's a holiday special, and the unit price is dropped down to $50, so they don't need to return that product, and you say it's a one-way sale, well, good luck with that, because often they will just take all the product. They won't go ahead and specifically tag it as a one-way sale. So even though you may give them a deep discount and say there are no returns allowed on it, I've seen instances where that product is coming back because suppliers have actually tagged them, but it doesn't matter. They don't want the product to sit on their shelves, nor do they want it to sit at the warehouses, so it will come back. And what makes it even more complicated is the last bullet is MDFs and co-ops agreements that are in place. So now, not only are they doing the unit variance and the pricing variance, but they're actually having you incorporate the MDF agreements, or the last one that was in there. And here's an example of where you can find it on their portal, but they've made it very, very difficult for you to use that. You have to know the agreement number, the invoice numbers that they're associated with, the product line. So you have to do this for each and every single line item. It's very, very time consuming. But returns have always been painful. I mentioned that earlier. What's involved with a returns recon, and why is it bigger now than in the past? I mentioned this earlier on. Line items. They're asking you to go line by line rather than a quarterly analysis where you can write macros to go ahead and look for that information. It's consuming the time for the recon team. Speed on the invoices. They may or may not pay you on terms, but on a return, once it leaves their warehouse and or that RMA, or they credit the end user, they immediately take your money, right? So they may drag your feet paying you, but when it comes to returns, you're short that amount of money. Access, real money flows right in and out of their suppliers. So they're moving a lot of their suppliers to EFT. So they are able to take that money from you immediately. Helps with their cash flow, not necessarily yours. And here's an example of the returns. You can see where the return dispute is. You can dispute the whole entire return, or you can dispute it by ASINs, but then you have to select the reason for it. So not only are you entering the information in there, but you're also having to validate each and every line item. Previously, you could group product together for pricing, for shortages and so forth, and do the settlements. Unfortunately, those days are gone. How bad are returns really? They're really bad. Here's an example of company that we're helping out. They have over 200,000 returns a year on average. That's 5 to 7 line items per return. If you multiply that on average of 7, you're looking at 1.4 million line items that they're going through on an annual basis, right? They're going to have to do each return one by one and produce that, put it into their portal, and go ahead and wait for them to pay that. Return reconciliations can consume an entire department who's in constant firefighting mode, right? So they're always trying to get ahead of them, and as most of you may know, there are also timelines associated with them. So if you don't dispute it within a specific time period, you're also out of money right there. The solution or solutions. So I'm going to go through several. Traditional solutions, I say don't work. You can add temps, throw bodies at the problem. That's going to cost you more money. And often companies will weigh the pros and cons of saying if it's a small variance of anything less than $25 or whatever the threshold is, they're not going to go ahead and dispute that. But you're going to have to do some of the work if you really want that money. You could offshore, throw cheaper bodies at the problem, but that's a temporary solution. So you're still gonna have to do that, and that can be seasonal. It can increase or decrease depending upon the time of year. Now there are air systems that are out there that process data, and basically what they do is they'll organize the data for you in a better way. But bodies are still needed to tackle the problem. Somebody's going to have to review and enter that information into the portal for you. The simple truth is you can't ever win. In the world of returns and retailers, they have the technology, they have the time, and they have the money. More than you can ever dream of, in the sense that they're just out there going ahead and investing a lot of money in technology. That is why you need bots, or I call them bots, but robots. Not one of these, but you're going to need some really high-tech bots called RPA, right? Robotic Process Automation. Now, how this works is robots what they basically do is automate business interactions by repeating a set of actions normally performed by humans. I mentioned earlier on where you're going to have to enter line by line into the system. Now, if the data is available there, bots are able to go ahead and enter that information free of any 10 key errors on that side. Now, the software for robots can be combined with artificial intelligence. Now, with the combination of that, you have a workforce right behind you of technology that's going to fight them with technology. And in a nutshell, it's basically robotic business process automation, or RPA, as it's known in the industry. Bots actually do level the playing field. And that's I'm going to call this one a returns bot. You can have a pricing bot, you can have a shortage bot, you can have different types of bots that are specifically targeted. These are return bots, and they're only going to solve one problem, is going to go ahead and dispute a return at lightning speed. Technology is not just a bigger stick, right? They do have the monies across there to put it into technology. It's a totally different way of dealing with returns. No longer can you have masses of teams going ahead and doing that, but bots will allow you to fight fire with fire. They can check and dispute every return. I mentioned earlier on about the thresholds. Here you no longer need thresholds because you have a team of bots that are doing the work for you. Not only are they able to do the work, but they should be able to keep up with you and stay current. Now, top benefits of robots in the return process automation, right? Number one, cost, right? Everyone, it's about the bottom line, and it's real. Out there, bots are 1/6 the cost of people. And I'm not saying you let go of the people. What I'm saying is, who wouldn't want to have 6 additional people on their team to help with their returns, right? Just think about that. So if you have the bots doing the work for you, you can actually, your team can actually focus on analytics of the data and actually go and find out root causes on that side. So basically, bots are much faster than humans and definitely cost a lot less. Number 2, scaling up and down. Right, Christmas still 6+ months away, but 'tis the season. What percentage of people in the manufacturing AR groups quietly sob in months leading up to the holidays, right? So everyone is excited about the holidays, but we also know that right after the holidays or during the holidays, returns are going to come back, and the stress level for your teams definitely increases. Now, bots really don't care whether it's December, January, March, whenever those returns are going to come back. And the benefits of having bots, right? Hiring costs are minimal and a one-time. So once you have that returns bot working, it's a one-time fee, and they're always there working for you at a minimal cost. They can replicate very easily, so they can deal with volumes. You can have, you know, 1 bot or 2 bots or however many bots you need working at that time. If the volume increases, the number of bots increase. You don't have to go ahead and hire temps, train temps, and then bring them on board just to keep up the volume. No tea breaks, no coffee breaks, no time off, and so forth. So they don't have to worry about overtime and so forth. Number 3. Bots are kind of cool. It's a new thing that everyone is talking about. What do they do, right? So CIOs actually love bots, right? Basically, they see that software that automates basic tasks in catching hold in large enterprises where CIOs are seeking to inject great efficiencies in their businesses, right? Called RPA. I think the credit and accounts receivable area is a little behind compared to the accounts payable. Some of the accounts payable areas are definitely using robots process automation on that side. But again, I mentioned this earlier, it's a specific bot. So the returns bots are going to help you. The payables bots are not going to help you. So it's going to be targeted to return specifically. IT, right? So often we think, wow, it's an IT project. It's going to take lots and lots of time to go through this, and it's going to be a year, and it's going to cost me this in this comic strip $3.5 million. CIOs are realizing that RPA are not long projects; they're much shorter projects, and if it's focused by bot and the type of bot, it can be done much quicker and at a fraction of the cost. Number 4, bots as a service, right? So you've heard software as a service, right? So typical consulting project process, right? So you'll have a senior practice lead from your organization. You have a project manager, process analyst, consultant. I'm not going to read all of them there, but you're going to have a bunch of people that are on-site consulting with you guys, doing the business analysis, finding your functional documents, and so forth. Well, the best people who know the process are your own process, or your own people. They know the process. They do it day in, day out, much better than a consultant coming in to telling you how to do that. And each company has a different way of dealing with returns because of their different systems and their limitations. So you're seeing more and more companies moving to a SaaS, right? Software as a service. So think of that, instead of having a bunch of consultants paying them a lot of money, use your core team that you have, look at a specific process and go from there. Here's just a bunch of companies that are in the software as a service space. There are so many more that are out there as well. So it's easier than you think, right? How you do this? Walk a robot service provider through your process, right? So, like I mentioned earlier on, your team are the ones they're the subject matter experts. Go through that, provide the raw data and the different systems that you need to get the information from, should I say, and your IT can help you coordinate that. And it's not a big effort because a lot of these feeds are coming into your AR systems or your ERP systems on a daily basis. Now that bot service provider will go away, take the requirements, customize it to that specific bot. And today we're talking about returns. They will test it, bring it back to you, go ahead and test it, and it's good to go. Now, the good thing about that is with a SaaS company is when a SaaS company signs up for it, if there are any changes to a retailer's portal, it's up to that SaaS company to make sure that the bots are continually working and make those changes. So you don't have to go back to your IT department and say, hey, by the way, it's not working. It's the responsibility of that service provider to make sure it's good to go and they're able to continue to work that process that's been designed. What's next? So it's super simple, right? 3-step process is schedule a demo of how robots work and how the process works, and see if that's the right one for you. 2, assess. Look at the vendor, right? Make sure that they understand the business process, that they have the knowledge of robotics RPA. Are they experts in that area? Come up with an integration plan and a roadmap. Onboard and train. Again, the training is as easy as maybe looking at the exceptions, because if the bots are going to go ahead and do the work for you, it's dealing with the exceptions or if they stop working, like I mentioned earlier, it should be the responsibility of the service provider to do that. I know you're constantly putting out fires. I mentioned this earlier on, but you don't have to let issues and fragmentation dominate your strategic vision. Focus in on one area, look at that, and go ahead and just take care of that one process instead of trying to boil the ocean. Do one piece at a time, and then move on to the next one as well. You may ask, how long do you think it would take for a full implementation, right? So mentioned earlier on, there's not a lot of IT involvement on this side because you're not, somebody's not building a system for all of the data to be stored in a single place. What it's doing is gathering all of that information, analyzing it, reconciling it, and uploading it. So the whole process will take months, not, a couple of months, not 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and you have to go to your project committee to say, I'm going to need $250,000 to $1 million for this project just to automate it. You should, like I say, chip away one little bit at a time. Mentioned earlier on, it's a few months at the tops. Final piece of advice on robots and returns, right? Focus on your department and your issues. Implement bots to solve a specific returns problem. If you have pricing, and that's the first one you need to go for, do that. If it's shortages, or if it's something with the carriers, go ahead and do that, but be specific to that problem itself. Don't try to solve your issues with a larger outsource RPA effort driven by a technology team. A lot of companies are now having internal RPA departments and trying to figure out what that is. They're going to try and put a huge roadmap together. They're going to go ahead and say, let's see what we can do. Let's make sure we have a good business case and so forth. Can be done, but I don't recommend you do that. I think you focus in on your area and build on those bots. And don't be fooled by an all-in-one accounts receivable package. Yes, there's SAP out there, which is great. It's more of a accounting and manufacturing and other ERP system, and there are bolt-ons, right? The bolt-ons that they say they can do everything, and typically they can store all of that data in a centralized place for you because teams may be reconciling in Excel or reconciling elsewhere. But what I've seen work best is where the bots do the end-to-end process and your teams deal with the exceptions. So instead of having to go into a bolt-on and saying, okay, again, I got to return, now I got to do the reconciliation, figure it out, I got all my paperwork, documentation, now I need to upload it. Find companies that will go end-to-end process that will really free up your team's time to focus in on root cause issues. And make sure that they have industry knowledge in the returns processing, right? So a lot of these companies are good at putting the software together, which is great, and SaaS as a service, but make sure that they have a team that is knowledgeable in returns or any area that you may choose to work on. Now, if you want to learn more, there are case studies that can be found, and RVCF will go ahead and send out this presentation, hopefully with the links, and then you can go see some case studies on how bots have really helped companies along the way. I think I did it in 30 minutes. I had 20 minutes, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rohit, for all of your insights and techniques. Now I'd like for us to address some of the questions here. The first question received is, does my IT group need to be involved if I want to implement robots for returns processing?
So yes and no. They don't need to be involved in the programming it, All they need to be involved is at the initial stage of being able to get access points to the credits, to the debits, invoices if needed, and the warehouse information. So if they have all of that information, and they typically already have those feeds, it's just getting access to that. Because as a SaaS company, the SaaS company should do all of the heavy lifting and the programming. It's not your IT department. Next. Are we still there?
Great. Our next question is RPA like screen scraping or macros?
All right. Without getting too technical, macros and scripts are basically programming, and they're short sequences of code that do one task or a series of tasks, right? Now, macros are linear and fixed. So, some of you may have already done that in Excel spreadsheets. So it's linear and fixed through there. Now, RPA bots are dynamic, right? And they're also system agnostic. So whereas when you're going to write a macro, it's going to be in Excel, right? When you're going to write a script, it's going to be in your ERP system. Whereas RPA, system agnostic and easily used not only on your systems, but also vendor portal. So it is different.
And it looks like we have one more question here. What does a typical implementation process look like?
Right, so a typical implementation process is once you've identified the returns issue that you need, it's probably a 30 minutes to a 1 hour call that's recorded, right? So we record the process on how your team would go ahead and go through that returns process. Provide them the rules. After that, the SaaS provider will go back, they'll build the bots, right? So they'll build the bots based upon the recording. They'll test it out, they will come to you and they'll say, here's what we've built, here's what the bots are doing. You guys go ahead and tweak it, test it, make sure it's working correctly, and then it's live in production. Often companies will monitor that for a month before they fully trust the bots to make sure it's working. But the whole implementation component is about 2 months.
Okay, great. Thank you for your questions and for attending today's seminar. A link to the on-demand version of this webinar will be sent to you following our program. For those of you who have further questions about the material covered in today's presentation or whose questions were not addressed in the Q&A portion, please feel free to contact Rohit Patel directly. Thank you and have a great day.